Who knows what's going to happen with money in the next 5, 10, 20 years or resources in general, but I want us to all be equipped in the best possible way that we can be to meet that moment. And a big part of that is being able to hold the sensation in our nervous systems and show up without just absolutely panicking.
Welcome to Money Musings, a podcast that breaks down money, investing, and wealth with zero BS and unapologetic irreverence. I'm your host and money co-conspirator, Stephanie Zenos. Let's get into it.
Welcome. I'm here today with Ayla Wayman. She's my friend and co-conspirator and also works with me over at Money Muse. We're going to be chatting today about the upcoming retreat. This is a little off the cuff. She just told me the questions a few seconds ago. So let's fucking go.
You're all in for a surprise.
Yeah. Also, do you want to introduce yourself, maybe?
Yeah, sure. My name is Ayla, as Steph said, and I have the pleasure of working with Stephanie on her business and all things Money Muse and Money Musings. And we're really excited to talk about the retreat today because it's something that we haven't really talked about yet and is something that's really new and I feel like emerging. And we wanted to share a podcast about it because I think it touches into a lot of the things that Steph is actually really cultivating behind the scenes and might lead into kind of the future of your work.
Yeah. And what better time to talk about something that's emerging than a time where it feels like literally everything's emerging at ultra warp speed. So
yeah. And that's a really big part of this is like we've been kind of future tripping and wondering where the world is going and what's happening. And I think a lot of us feel this moment as being pivotal and we don't know in what way it's going to pivot. But through Steph's work and your history and all of these things, like we know that resources are going to be really important. And there's a lot of different ways that we can think about resources, but we're kind of playing in the realms of money and also like being self-resourced. And we're going to get into some of that, what that means and what that looks like. But that is going to be a thread in this retreat of where we're going and what's going to be happening and being ready for whatever that is. But I would love to hear from you sort of some of the things that you've been thinking about as we've been future tripping and anything that feels exciting or irrelevant in this moment.
yeah, I feel like we're entering into a time where our definitions of things like wealth are really shifting fast. If you had asked me even a few years ago about my definition of wealth, I would have said probably more on the side of actually making your money work for you, having a lot of money, being well resourced. And I think the other side of that equation that I've focused on the last couple of years is also feeling really good about your money. You can do everything right tactically. And if you don't feel good about it and it's not settled in your body and you're not feeling resourced and safe and delightful or able to chase inspiration or have lots of flexibility and freedom, it's kind of like, what's the point? So I think the definition for me of like being well-resourced and being wealthy is really shifting. I can't say that it's just about a tactical and just having money anymore. It's so much more about how you're showing up in the world, how much you're engaging with the world, how much joy you have, how much you're reciprocating and circulating your wealth. So it's just become a much bigger question, a much bigger goal for myself and also the women that I get to work with. So I feel like it's this moment where all of those things are being smushed together and timelines are collapsing. And it's like, now's the time for us all to figure that out and up-level together.
Yeah, I think that that's a really central piece of everything that we've been talking about and that you're bringing to your work and the people that you serve. And there's also this piece about like in this moment where we're moving into this unknown future, the more money that can be in the hands of like good-hearted, good-souled, excited people who are holding a collective vision of something more and bigger, I know is a big thing that you are working toward and like curious about what that even means for you, but just like putting resources in people's hands and expanding like what that means and what that looks like.
Yeah, I think my goal is really to help as many people become wealthy and also have the orientation towards giving back and circulating their wealth and supporting others, whether that's their community or causes they care about. I'm not interested in just helping randos get richer. I want people to be using their money for good and expressing benevolent power in the world, especially that's aligned with their vision, their skills and expertise, and like their unique thing to do in this next chapter. So it sounds like a little bit of a lofty goal, but at this moment, that's what I'm really hoping for any of the women that work with me or that I get to touch in this way.
Yeah. And I feel like you're so well positioned in this space of having that practical background, that scientific background, and now really stepping into your spiritual gifts and your spiritual curiosities and really bringing these two sides together, I think, to create a lot of magic and inspiration for others, and like also helping people from more of the practical world come into the spiritual world.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. It's funny that for a long time, the client that I attracted a long time is like someone who's like, I say a dragon sitting on a pile of gold. And sometimes that energy is a little bit like scarcity. So even if you had a lot of money, it's still kind of like, I'm collecting on to my riches. And like, I'm scared to lose it, or I'm scared to make a mistake. And so this piece is really what I hope will unlock for people the feeling really fucking juicy and good about their money, and feeling expressed and feeling like they really do have options and power. And like I said, in a benevolent way. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I know, me too. Okay, I'm curious about how the idea of the Muse Retreat came into being, or what that initial inspiration was or felt like, and where this idea sparked.
Well, I think it's funny because my business was basically 100% tactical until about a year ago. And yet the name of the business is Money Muse. And yes, I'm Greek and the muses were Greek. So maybe that's what it was all about. Or maybe there was that other little intelligent whisper underneath that was like, one day you're going to be talking about these other things. I don't know. But all I know is the idea of having a retreat in Greece where the muses are from, where this muse is from, and also like connecting my spiritual learning, my like manifestation work with all of the tactical is just so dreamy. And so I think it was something that I always wanted to do in the background, but I felt like, are people even interested in the spiritual side? Do they even care? And the more I got into manifestation and the more I manifested out of fucking thin air, and people were like, wow, that's really cool. And I see people more interested in them now. So I felt like I could like come out of the spiritual closet a little bit more and be like, yes, I run a tactical business where I teach you to invest, and I want you to feel really juicy and like connected and all the things. So
Exactly. So such an amazing guide for us in this space of creation and bringing like this hard skills of investing and like learning how to work with your money in a really practical way. And then, yeah, the energetics, the spiritual work, the underlying things. Okay, I want to tap into your half Greek and your dad lives on Kos. And I want to talk about sort of the role Kos has played in your own evolution, because there's a practical piece in this of creating a property with your dad and being able to do that. And there's kind of like this interesting energy it feels that Kos has. I would love if you wanted to speak to that and your roots. And
yeah, it's such a wild through line because I grew up without really my father. I was a passion baby, which is like my parents were fucking insanely in love, and they had me, and then things kind of got passionate in the wrong way. And my mom left with me, and I just never knew my father. So I grew up with like this hole where, you know, this wonderful, loving, masculine presence would normally be. And then I had some abuse from a stepfather that also created some more of like a bad dynamic with the masculine. And my response to that was to like armor up and be like, I'm going to be the fucking smartest. I'm going to be the richest. I'm going to do everything right. And that really served me in my money journey because I was obsessed with money and I learned so much and I integrated all of that knowledge and I was able to get to where I was. And I was not like super good with money in terms of feelings. Like I would fight about money with my ex, even though there was plenty. Gross. So yeah, returning to Greece, I feel like it was like this full circle moment of like healing this wound that started as this seed that blossomed into like this knowing that became like it had to die and like recompose, and now it's like a re-emergence as like a complete new
flower. And I am goosebumps because we've been kind of investigating this through line. Like we know it's there, and I feel like you really just landed on it in a way that feels really concrete of like your own evolution and emerging. And I know that's sort of part of the offering you want to bring to other people of like bringing their own stories with money full circle and bringing the darkness and the shadows and the wounds and the limiting beliefs into the light to transform them so that they can also be powerful creators.
And I want the arc of this to be like, we're going to go down so that we can go up, but we have to like get into the dark, real, juicy bits that basically control who we are. So yeah, we got to touch those little pieces.
Definitely. And I feel like this sort of brings us into this realm that is going to be a theme in the retreat, or something that we work with and touch on, of this practical side and the spiritual side. And to me, this like reciprocity circle that you work with and teach on and in varying ways, and I think is like going to come more into the forefront of being in the practical. Like, the world is set up where we exchange value for money. We all have jobs. We all have ways that we're making money. And then we receive money, but how well do we receive? And in what way do we receive? And then what do we do once we receive? Do we have the ability to hold and create and generate more wealth from that receptivity? And then bringing that back out into the world and like giving that and sharing that. And I feel like that's so much of where your work is going. It's like you've been focusing on the front end of that. Like, how do you help people make and build wealth? And then what are the other pieces like that?
Yeah.
So anything you want to talk about that cycle?
Yeah, I think that cycle is, for me, the connection between like financial independence and actual wealth. And to be actually wealthy, I think you have to complete that circuit where you can have money flowing out of one hand and have money flowing into the other hand without resistance. You can give freely and not be like, oh gosh, if I give this money, like, am I going to be okay? Or, oh, I want to invest in this thing, but I'm scared of the outcome. So it's like removing the fear from the out, and also removing like the deservingness and the weird things that come up around receiving money, because so many of us block ourselves from actually receiving what we earn with our energetic exchange. So whether that's like your pricing and be like, oh, I can't charge what I'm worth, or like not asking for the raise, or having someone try to care for you and you're like, I can't receive it, whatever it might be. If we can complete that circuit and that cycle, like, we're just going to be able to really embody those wealth codes. And I think that's like inherently like a feminine wealth thing and not just like a masculine power wealth thing.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I feel like that circle also really is able to show us and highlight our own blocks. Like, if you're looking at it in that way, you're like, okay, where am I stuck? Am I not able to like generate income? Like, is that a block? Am I not able to hold? Because sometimes people will receive an inheritance and like blow it instantly, or like not steward their wealth well, or being that little dragon and hoarding and not being trusting that like they can also give and that things will come back to them, and having that healthy relationship with that circle.
So I want to look at that cycle on the retreat from various lenses. We have the lens of like these blocks, emotional blocks that prevent us from really like stepping into our juicy receptivity, like she was saying, at all these different parts of that cycle. There's another lens, which is like just looking at things through attachment. Do we have an anxious attachment with money, or do we have an avoidant attachment with money? So like touching on into all of the different modalities of like looking at the same thing so that we can find different paths to healing. And like maybe for one person, it's more about attachment, and another person, it's something else, and like worthiness or blocks, and kind of opening that up and doing that healing work, and then like coming out the other side of my bang. So it's pretty fun. I'm ready for my next level of unlocking my blocks. I've worked on this so much, but there's another layer, and there's always another layer. With that, I feel like this also speaks into this theme in the sense of the future that we're moving toward, and what you were saying at the beginning of us. And no matter what is happening, I think there's a big piece of everyone building their capacity and their resilience right now. Yeah. And that's, I think, something else we're going to work out on, like with nervous system work. Do you want to speak to that a little bit? Yeah.
Like building strength and capacity?
Yeah. So part of this arc with the retreat is like with every day as we're excavating or rebuilding, because we're kind of going through this full rebirth cycle, death and rebirth cycle, we're going to be tying each of the days to different somatic practices that are going to help us like integrate that work into our physical form, because who knows what's going to happen with money in the next 5, 10, 20 years, or resources in general. But I want us to all be equipped in the best possible way that we can be to meet that moment. And a big part of that is being able to hold the sensation in our nervous systems and show up without just absolutely panicking.
Yeah. Pray, like no matter where we're going to need to be able to hold ourselves and our emotions and our sensation, and we need tools to do that. And so that's a big piece of this as well, which is going to be really, really fun. And I feel like another piece in myth that we've been touching on, but I want to just like dive into this piece of being on this beautiful island and really like putting ourselves into a slower pace. Even speaking about how Coast is sort of like 20 years behind.
Yeah.
And we're at this precipice. And I think that a lot of us are asking big questions about the work that we're meant to do in the world, like how we're supposed to show up for this moment. And if we just keep going the way that we're going, that likely won't serve us in this next step. And so this is also creating a space to like pull back and pause. And in that, also just being able to receive the juiciness of the island, like the slowing down. I would love for you to speak to all of that and that receptive state that like gives us inspiration and being able to like create a vision from that place.
It's like twofold because Coast is like, maybe 40 years behind. You're literally at an agricultural island. You land the plane and the first thing you smell is like dried figs that have been like drying on the dirt. You're like, where am I? And there's sheep crossing the road. And you're like, ooh, traffic jam. Okay. So it's so juicy. And this part of the world has this magic something that's like so hard to describe, but it just feels like, like ancient culture, ancient wisdom, ancient like psychic and spiritual practices, the muses having their wine, which was definitely psychedelics. Like there's so much juiciness there. And then in addition to that, in addition to the island holding you with like this beautiful mountain grounding us, but it's like a old volcano, like the whole thing is fucking epic. And then there's me. I'm going to be also like, holding everyone in this container and not only sharing my experience with Coast and coming full circle, but like offering and reflecting and holding the space for everyone to have their own transformation and journey. So a thing that I'm hearing from so many people right now is the world feels like it's speeding up, like faster, faster, faster. And there's so much go and there's so much like attention dynamics and people trying to vie for our attention. And so this is a really wonderful opportunity to slow the fuck down and like get on island time with us and get into like some deep body truth, because we all know that it's there and most of us don't have the opportunity in our day-to-day life to slow down to the level to actually receive that. So it's going to be really, really lovely, and we're going to do the work, and we're going to have so much time for integration and exploring and being with nature and picking herbs and just swimming in the sea. Like it's just, it's an unbelievable place.
Yeah, it sounds like an exhale. Are there any things about the island that you want to share right now that you're excited about or that people can like look forward to, or some of your favorite highlights?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to do on the island, and it was actually very difficult for us to put together an itinerary. Like we've been... Oh man. But like there's a couple dining experiences I'm really excited to share. So one is going to a restaurant, which I'm not going to name because it's so off the beaten path. You're literally eating outside of like some ruins, and there's like sheep walking by, and there's people like running up and like cooking little things for you and bringing out on little plates. But we're just like amongst these ruins in an old abandoned village, and you just get to have this amazing dining experience where people are like playing the zukia and you're like transported hundreds of years ago. I don't know. It's wild. That's one really special thing. And then I'm excited to do a boat ride with everyone. So we have islands all around. The cool thing about Coast is like you can always see neighboring islands. So the sea is like so tiny and warm and lovely and like very little waves. And so you can go out on a boat and you can like pop over with these dolphins and like take a little swim off the boat and then go to this other island and have lunch and then go up third island and like take a little swim. So everything's so accessible and close, and like it's just like, such a little microcosm of beauty. So
I mean, what could be better? It's like doing this deep work, but having it in this really supportive, like beautiful environment that allows us all to, just to tap into this deeper level that I feel like you're really interested in excavating and playing with.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
And okay, lastly, what would you hope that people walk away from in this experience? What is like your vision for this and your intention and what you are really wanting to create in that moment?
I think the call is essentially for anyone who feels a deeper drive to integrate kind of our, as I would say, like the spiritual and the logistical side of money and create like an actual being of wealth. So I want to create a new archetype for feminine wealth, and I want to help kind of disseminate that amongst my collective peer groups and see like who's up to that task, who wants to kind of embody that new feminine wealth and learn how to receive and circulate in a way that's going to be positive, net positive for everyone, for us, for other people, for the planet, all the things, for space, for all the things,
For the dolphins.
I like it. So that's the call. And, or if someone is really interested in like the spiritual, energetic side of money. So like where money and our ability to be wealthy lives in our body and how to like tap into that, how to heal parts of that, how to manifest, how to create something out of nothing.
Amazing. And yeah, we have a few spots left. So if you feel like this is something you're being called to, we really would love to have you. It's going to be a really amazing group, and we're just really excited to dive in. Like, it's going to be such a treat and such a pleasure for the team as well. And I think a really big co-creation. And I think that everyone is going to leave really transformed and perhaps with a new vision of what they're meant to do. Like, these are the times we're here for.
And also, like, and you think of the people who will feel called to it and the people who have felt called to it, like such an incredible capacity for holding both sides and an opportunity to meet other women like that and build like a community and a deep connection as this foundation for the future of humanity and whatever comes next in this next phase. Those are the type of relationships that I want to cultivate. So selfishly, that's why I want to have this retreat. And so it's also an opportunity to meet other women like that and build your resources in that way.
Yeah, community is going to be a huge resource in the future, and really being with the people that you resonate with and creating with them. So, well, thank you for listening.
Thanks, Dad. I hope we're going to have the fucking best time.
Thanks for allowing me to be part of your money journey. If you heard something that made you think in a new way or expanded your views about money today, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave me a cute little note in the form of a review. See you next time. As always, a quick but important reminder that everything I share here is solely for the purpose of your entertainment, education, and inspiration. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as personal, financial, legal, or investment advice. Everyone's financial situation is wildly different, and that's why it's so important that you do your own research and decide what's right for you.